There's some things you just can't privatize. There's some things that just you can't have a profit making incentive built in. Um, from the perspective of a middleman, right? Like education, you just can't fucking privatize it, man. Like we're trying and we're failing at that. We had discussion about charter schools last week. You can't have this built-in profit motive by a middleman in healthcare. You can somewhat manage profit motives of doctors and the providers, right? You can manage that. But if you have this middleman insurance and they have a profit motive, they're gonna, as you said earlier, they're gonna squeeze one or both sides in order to increase their profits. And I can tell you, someone again who has private health insurance, this is what it is. And I mean, I don't read it line by line. I'm reasonably aware of the health insurance that I have, and I can't walk in and tell you for this barring procedures that I always get my checkups. If it was something out of the ordinary, I could not tell you like, oh, my allergies are really bad this year, and I'm probably gonna have to go to the doctor. I have no fucking idea how much it's gonna cost, which is insane. Right? You're like, what other system on earth? Would you go to a restaurant? There obviously there's like market prices for some items. Would you go to a fucking restaurant, order some food, and have them say, well, listen, fam, we don't know. We'll figure it out at the end. Like, of course you wouldn't. There's nothing else we allow to operate in such an asinine way but our healthcare. The most important thing to us, if you don't have health, you don't have anything. And how many Americans that I could sit down and say, okay, 43-year-old woman, how much would you be paying for a mastectomy if you needed it tomorrow? How many Americans can answer that question like that? I don't know of any. Like I don't like me. I have a history of colon cancer in my family. I started getting colonoscopies when I turned 40. Ron, how much is a colonoscopy? With your current insurance, if you got one today, how much would it cost? No fucking clue.
Right.
And I've called around and I don't get answers. When I call prior to, I don't get answers. And then you look up, it's like, oh, you owe us $600.
Yeah, and that's after you've paid thousands and thousands of dollars out of pocket or pulled out your paycheck for private insurance. I mean, that's the other big lie too, is like, just imagine if instead of writing a check every month to Blue Cross Blue Shield or having your employer write a check every month to Blue Cross Blue Shield, you just wrote it to Sooner Care and you had that insurance. Like, people just have just like this weird disconnect in their head about how the finances work on this. And it's like, look, you're paying massively for healthcare right now for a very shit product that most of us can't use. Anyway, I mean, yeah, we could go off on healthcare, but it's just, I mean, this fight is pretty cool in the sense that like, it's actually getting us much closer to the honest conversation we need to be having instead of like the bullshit one. Yeah.
Why do you think the state legislature is doing the right thing? Not being funny, like they see, or not like they're making the intelligent decision. And for our state legislature, that's a deviation, shall we say, from their standard behavior, an aberration, if you will. Why do you think they're doing it? It's like ego power grab on their part?
No, I think it's because the health sector has massive lobbying influence. And like the deal is when the private market comes in, I mean, they're going to squeeze either providers or patients. And that's a bad fight for providers to be in, right? You know, I mean, providers want to provide. There's a whole lot of problems with the provider side of our system. I mean, doctors make too much, drug companies, equipment manufacturers, hospitals. I mean, they're all taking way too much. But at the end of the day, they are institutions of health, and like their goal is to help heal sick people. So I mean, like they just want a system that largely works, and so there's just nothing to be gained. I mean, they would get squeezed, and the only person that gains is some private insurance company that, you know, their overhead, you know, that's like one of the funny things when you compare government overhead and private overhead. I mean, the overhead for like a private insurance company is like 10, 15, 20% because you're paying profit margins, you're paying CEO salaries, you're paying shareholders, whereas the government just has to pay payroll processors and then, you know, file claims. Like they just, I mean, because like when you look at a federal level, like Medicare and Social Security, I mean, their overhead is like 1%. I mean, it's extraordinarily low because it's such a massive system that they can drive their costs way down.
Inefficient government bureaucracy.
I mean, all you're doing is processing claims. Like that's all you're doing. Like, but the insurance company, the way they make their money is by fighting and making it complicated and rejecting people. And I mean, that's how they save.
I've had crazy conversations like, hey, I thought this was covered. The doctor told me it was covered. Well, actually, a percentage of that is covered, but not that actual procedure. We sent it over there. I'm like, and we don't cover that over there. I'm just like, yo, like this is insane. But if I don't pay you, my credit will suck. So now I have to pay you.
And this is the big lie, though, is like and that private insurers like desperately don't want people to know is like Sooner Care is free. Everything is free. Now, yes, there is a qualification system, like where if you truly don't need some service, or if they can recommend something maybe that's less expensive, I mean, there is like you have to get approvals, and sometimes that can take a little bit of time. But it's no worse than like going to a private doctor. I mean, if I got sick tomorrow and wanted to go to my general practitioner, I wouldn't be able to get in probably, unless I was like begging them on the phone to be like, look, I just really need to get in. But if I called for just a general checkup, I mean, it'd be a month. To me, it's like even the argument about wait times doesn't even make sense, because Sooner Care, in my experience, can get you in just as fast. And like I said, it's free. Once your treatment is approved, it is $0. You don't even like. It's also just the thrill of being able to go to the doctor, go to the receptionist, say, I'm here for my appointment, go back, talk to your doctor, and walk out the door. Like, that's it. That's all you do. It's all just customer service. Like, there's no, well, now I got to pay your copay and, like, sign this form that says we'll come get you if you don't do this. I mean, there's just all that's out the window. It's all just about getting your medical treatment. I mean, it's magical.
With my private insurance, I thought the copay was good. Like, I was like, all right, I'm gonna walk out here. I'm gonna slam this 20 on the table for this copay, and that's how we good. That's what you're telling me, right? And you're just like, pay the copay and you leave, and then Blue Cross Blue Shield, you check your mail. It's like, actually, the hospital's like, actually, you owe $750. I'm like, yo, I thought the copay was, what was that? Like, what are we doing? I thought the 20 was good. What are we on?
Yeah. No, I just can't. And so, like, one of the conversations I had this week is, a Democrat ran a bill for a public option for Sooner Care. Forrest Bennett ran a bill, of course, didn't get heard. But it's like, I mean, the private insurance companies have to be terrified of this kind of legislation. And it would just be awesome for a Republican to just try it. Like, Marcus McIntyre, who's the one running this bill to go after Stitt. And I think, going back to your question about his motivations, he's from Duncan. Duncan has a large hospital. He's also pretty moderate. So I think there's like a lot of like financial reasons, economic reasons that he would do it, but also just relational reasons. Like, he's probably good friends with a lot of people in Duncan who work at the big hospital that treats that whole area. So, he's incentivized to protect, somewhat of their interest. But it would be so cool of him to go and run a public option Medicaid bill next year. Like, it would, co-sponsor with some Dems, it would be super cool if he would have that conversation, because I think there's a real chance it could get passed. Like, I mean, I think you could triangulate enough Republicans and all the Democrats and find a way through.